I'm Judy Shaw for NYSE Floor Talk. Joining me today is Katie Holligan. She is Head of Operations at Charm Industrial. Katie, wonderful to have you here today. Thanks for joining me at NYSE West in San Francisco.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, great to have you. Now, before we get started, just a quick note to viewers. This interview is for informational purposes only. The NYSE doesn't recommend any investments or investment strategies. All right, so Katie, tell me, how did you end up working on climate?
Sure. I started my career actually working in oil and gas. I wanted to work on big engineering challenges, and I thought the prospect of drilling a well thousands of feet deep was fascinating. While I was doing that, I started to get interested in clean energy and in climate. At the time, the pace of development of solar and of wind was really picking up, and that was exciting to me. I started reading IPCC climate reports and other news, and that ultimately shaped my opinion and my perspective that I wanted to work on climate, and I wanted to use my career to have an impact on climate. And so I first started working in building energy efficiency, and then in early 2021, I crossed paths with Charm Industrial, and there was sort of a unique opportunity to utilize my heavy industrial experience and my subsurface experience, but to have a big impact on climate in carbon removal and in the decarbonization of iron making. So I was absolutely hooked from the moment we met. Yeah.
So now talk to me about Charm Industrial. What's the mission?
Sure. Charm's mission is to return the atmosphere to 280 parts per million CO2. And that's just pre-industrial atmospheric CO2 concentrations. We do that by working on two technologies. One is carbon dioxide removal, and the other is the decarbonization of iron making. Both are important. We know that we need carbon dioxide removal because of the IPCC climate reports. Calls for between 5 and 20 gigatons or billion tons of carbon dioxide removal by 2050 to stay on track for no more than 1.5 degrees of warming. And iron making is actually 7% of global greenhouse gas emissions. It's one of the single largest chunks of emissions in the world. And historically, it hasn't seen a lot of innovation because it's an infrastructure-heavy industry. It's hard to change, hard and expensive to change. So with regards to carbon dioxide removal, Charm does something that's called bio-oil sequestration. We take waste biomass, like agricultural residues or wood waste, and we put it through a process that's called fast pyrolysis. And that produces bio-oil. And we take the bio-oil and we pump it underground, often in retired or abandoned oil and gas assets. And there it's stored permanently. And basically, the plant is pulling carbon dioxide down from the atmosphere. We're turning that plant into a liquid, and then we're putting that liquid underground so that the carbon can no longer return to the atmosphere. And then finally, with regards to iron making, instead of using the bio-oil as our vehicle for carbon sequestration, we can use it as a reducing agent to take iron ore and reduce it to metallic iron. Traditionally, that's done with fossil fuels. And so if an iron making plant instead uses bio-oil, they can both avoid about 1.5 tons of CO2 equivalent in emissions by using bio-oil. And if they capture the emissions off of their flue stack, they can also remove 1.2 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per ton of steel from the atmosphere. So has the potential to really have a transformative impact on the iron making industry.
All right, so talk to me about how you're different from others that are in this space.
Yeah, there are a few important things to highlight, I think. One is that Charm's carbon dioxide removal is very permanent, on the order of thousands of years, and it's also additional. Other carbon offsets or carbon credits typically have lower permanence, on the order of tens of years, and that's just not what we need to achieve our climate objectives. And then the other aspect is that our carbon dioxide removal solution is additional, meaning that the carbon dioxide removal would not have happened if it were not for the purchase from our clients. And then I think maybe the last thing to highlight is that Charm leverages plants as our carbon capture technology. In comparison to other high-quality carbon dioxide removals, direct air capture is probably the most well-known that have resource-intensive technology to pull carbon dioxide directly out of the air. We're leveraging a natural process, photosynthesis, something we all learned about in school, to achieve the same objective.
Okay, and as you look to the year ahead, what are you most focused on?
There's a lot to be excited about and to get to work on in the next year. We have 1 or 2 new pyrolyzers, which is the machine producing bio-oil, coming online. So that just means that myself and my team have more opportunity to fulfill our customers' orders, and that's fantastic. One of our pyrolyzers we are deploying to a region that was affected by wildfires in the Sierra Nevadas. And we'll be operating at a very small scale because this is the first time we've ever operated in this environment. But I am keen to understand how we can have an impact on these communities that have been impacted by wildfire to make them more livable and safer and give them better air quality. So that's something that we'll be working towards over the next year. On another note, I would say at CHARM as a whole, we would like to see some progress in policy over the next year. Carbon dioxide removal, as far as is concerned in policy and regulatory, has been defined as the sequestration of gaseous CO2, which means that we do not qualify for regulatory incentives, as well as a host of other carbon dioxide removal solutions. And my colleague who works on policy has been working very hard over the past several years to broaden that definition and to make it technology agnostic, but it's a slow process. And so we'd like to see some major wins over the next year to help us qualify for those regulatory incentives. It's immensely important to achieve the 5 to 20 gigatons objective that we have by 2050.
All right, and finally, Katie, you're attending the carbon conference that's taking place here in San Francisco. What are your key takeaways?
Yeah, thus far I've been really impressed by the caliber of other participants. We are invited because we were a finalist in the X Prize competition, and it's been fun and, again, really impressive to meet the other 60 teams who are also finalists.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining me on Floor Talk. Great to have you here today.
Thank you.